السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم علمنا بما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا إيمانا يا رب العالمين. So today we're continuing our discussion on agency for Muslim women and تمكين المرأة المسلمة. And this tamkeen, as a reminder and refresher, this agency and this tamkeen is through Allah, is through your relationship to Allah Azza wa Jalla. It's not through any government movement or any ism or anything of that sort. It is your agency is acquired through your relationship with Allah Azza wa Jalla. And so to acquire this agency, what we try to do is reflect on our history. In our history of whether it's the female companions or the women of the Quran or notable characters from our history, that we're able to truly show this agency and this tamkeen that is rooted in the pleasing of Allah Azza wa Jal. Through these stories, we can hopefully follow in the footsteps of these women. And the reason that we say is going through our history is because a lot of the wisdom that we require to navigate the various situations of today that we face as women, a lot of that wisdom is acquired through multiple outlets. So how does one acquire wisdom? Are some people possibly born with this heightened level of wisdom and problem solving? Yes. But if you don't, you can acquire this skill. So there are multiple avenues to acquiring wisdom. The first of those is through experience, is that sometimes we just have to go through life to face certain situations and through that experience, acquire wisdom. The second of those is knowledge. When you learn in your field, if you're a doctor, for example, and you're learning in that field, that is how you acquire knowledge. Now, when you study outside of your field, so if you're a doctor, but you look into philosophy and public speech and all of that, that is where how you acquire wisdom, is by stepping outside of your field and studying other fields as well. The third of those is mentors. Having mentors and guidance, proper guidance, people who maybe have already walked this path. Most of the problems that we face today, someone has already faced this situation before. Someone has already dealt with it. There is a woman out there who has faced exactly what you are facing right now. And instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, sometimes having that mentor to go back to, someone that we can trust, whose advice is rooted in a sense of balance, of pleasing Allah Azza wa Jal, but also knowing when to, how to approach these various situations is so important. That's the third route of getting wisdom. Now, the fourth avenue of building wisdom, the fourth avenue is through history. History, as mentioned, history already has all of these characters, women who have gone through what we've gone before, and we've seen years to come. You know, sometimes it's only when someone passes away that we see all of the work that they've done or the consequences, whether good or bad, of all of their work. So referencing people who have passed and referencing people who from history is a good way to reflect on our actions. It's a good way to reflect on the routes that we take to solve our problems. So these four avenues are so crucial and critical to gaining wisdom. And wisdom is one of the foundational elements of being able to face this world. So today's story is rooted in a character that is sometimes briefly touched upon and never extensively. And we mention her name in stories as, you know, a character who is in the background or is important. But today I want to pause on her story. And this is the story of the sister of Musa, alayhi salam, and the role that she played, the crucial role that she played in the story of Sayyidina Musa. And really, the story of Sayyidina Musa I feel, is a story of women. Whether it's if it's the mother of Musa or his sister, or then Asiya, the queen, or after that, his marriage in Madian, there are so many women that help him get to the position that he did within the courts of Fir'aun. And so I really think the story of Musa is rooted in the power of women, in the impact that we have on the stories that develop around us. And so the sister of Musa, alayhi salam, and the sister of Musa begins, I want to kind of set the context. I want to set the story, the background. I want you to kind of imagine what the sister of Musa is going through in the moment. Now, the sister of Musa, and it is said that her name is Maryam and that his mother's name is Yukabit. But let's say Maryam. So Maryam is in a situation right now where Pharaoh has released these orders, Fir'aun, that every other year, any boy that is born is to be murdered, is to be killed. And so there is this older sister who is in a state of almost panic. And so is her mother, of course, because they are unsure what this baby is going to be, whether it's going to be a boy and a girl, but they're also very worried that this baby is going to be taken from them. Now, this is a time of a very heightened time within Bani Israel, because they are living a time where there are spies going around. There are people within them who are trying to figure out who is pregnant and who is not. And since it was every other year, and it's very important to mention that the year before Musa was born, there was Harun. Harun was born. And we're going to circle back to the story of Harun later on, and why, subhanAllah, the way Allah arranged for this situation to unfold was so critical later on to the mother of Musa being able to walk into the palace and feed her son without anyone having any kind of doubt or shak as to, why does this woman have milk in her breasts. So we'll circle back to that in a bit. But the story of his sister, so now Musa, the mother of Musa, is out giving birth. And if, we know that labor is a very painful situation to be in, but now the mother of Musa is having to go on the outside of the Medina to give birth because she doesn't want anyone to know that she is giving birth, and especially if she has a boy. So the mother of Musa goes out to give birth, and she has to give birth in silence. And we all know how difficult that is to give birth in silence. It's a very painful event in the life of women, some more than others, of course. But anywho, she has to give birth in silence. And Musa is born. And we know that Allah Azza wa Jal sends her this revelation of the sort where he puts some sakina in her heart. And he says, feed him and then put him in the basket. Feed him and place. So this is the first feeding of this newborn baby. And so the mother of Musa feeds him. And it's very important that we keep track of this timing, because you're going to see how merciful Allah is, that truly when Allah says that he reunited Musa with his mother, it wasn't days later, it was a mere hours later of placing Musa in the basket. And so the mother of Musa feeds him and then places him in the basket. And I want you to kind of imagine the situation that she was in. Imagine the state that his sister was in. His sister is right there next to his mom. And what must have her heart felt like placing her newborn son in a basket and setting him into the river. And this is the Nile River. If you know anything about the Nile River, this is not like a small river. This is a very wide river. And she places this newborn baby in a basket and lets him go. And of course, this is from Allah Azza wa Jal, but she also ties her camel. This is very important to note, that even though she knew that this was from Allah Azza wa Jal, she didn't simply say, well, Allah's got my child, let him go. I'm not going to do anything. She tells, and this is where the sister of Musa comes in, and she says, Qussi. She says, follow him. But this word, Qussi, is so important because this is not a situation where she can be very vocal about following him, or even very obvious. So Qussi is where you are following something, like, following like a strand of hair, very gently, calmly, slowly, very calculated movements. And when you think about it, for a young girl and his sister to be able to follow the order of her mother is so cautiously, so calculated, in a way that does not grab any attention of anyone around her. And this is not easy. I mean, if your brother is in the river in a basket, that is a very difficult situation to be in. And so nonetheless, Musa's in the basket and he's in the river, and now his sister, Maryam, is following him. And very gently, very calmly on the banks of the river, in a way where she's not noticed, in the way where no attention is given to her. And so until the basket, subhanAllah, lands in the exact same place that the mother of Musa and Maryam did not want the basket to land, and that is in the court of Pharaoh, of Fir'aun. And subhanAllah, when you think about it, it's all of the situations, the scenarios that were pretty obvious, and as if Allah just, made Fir'aun not really pay attention to it or softened his heart in that moment. But essentially, who is going to put a baby in a basket? It has to be someone who feared for the life of the baby. And so it would have been automatically assumed that this must be a child of Bani Israel, because the Egyptians, the pharaohs at the time, the Egyptians were considered the higher upper class, and they would not be putting a child in the basket. So they would have assumed that this must be a child of Bani Israel. But subhanAllah, instead of going out and searching, who does this child belong to, the child was just taken in. This is from the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. And when Musa is taken in, and again, his sister is still there. His sister is still following. His sister has not let go. And his sister also didn't jump the wagon to kind of grab the baby. Imagine your brother is going into the exact same hole, the den of the lion that you were trying to avoid at all costs. I would jump and try to take the basket or something. But subhanAllah, there is this sakina and wisdom to the sister of Musa. And this is what we're trying to focus on. And this is what we're trying to teach our girls. To that emotional grounding that is rooted in tawakkul and faith. Because imagine the amount of tawakkul and faith you must have in Allah Azza wa Jal to be able to just place your son in a basket in the middle of a river. And so the sister of Musa is still following along, still kind of tracking, still monitoring the situation, not jumping, trying to solve the situation, not trying to suggest anything just yet. And that takes a lot of emotional grounding. It's something that we really need to teach our girls. And she follows the basket and she notices the basket comes in. Now, it's the baby. If you know anything about labor and feeding and babies, it's usually the baby. One is the next feeding. It's usually after 4 to 5 hours of the baby's first feeding. And so at this point, Musa's hungry, and his sister is still following. Maryam is still following from, looking and monitoring the situation. And she sees that they're bringing in one woman after another, and he refuses every single woman's chest and refuses to take any milk from them. And she's still monitoring, and she's still very patient. She's waiting for that right moment to say something. And when she does, when that moment comes, she doesn't make a statement. She doesn't say, well, I know a woman who can feed him, and, I can solve this problem, and I got you. She's very calm. She asks a question. She said, shall I point you in the right direction of a woman who could be of help here? Shall I point you in the direction of someone? And this is so important. We're going to pause here for a second, because there is an art that we have to teach our children, and especially our daughters. And this is the art of questioning. This is the art of asking questions, but asking the right questions. And this is rooted in wisdom. It's rooted in faith, and it's rooted into an inner peace inside, a sense of just emotional peace and stability. But she asked a question. She made a suggestion. She did not make a statement, even though she could see that they're at a state where you can just imagine the situation, absolute desperation. There's a baby who's screaming and crying and wanting to feed. And she makes a suggestion. Shall I point you in the direction of a woman? And subhanAllah, just like that, Musa's mom is reunited with her son. And so that means that between the first feeding and the second feeding was probably not more than 4 to 5 hours. And Musa's mom is reunited with her baby. So subhanAllah, in that moment, we must truly pause and reflect how Allah, and it's a promise, Allah promised Musa's mother that I will return him to you. And despite Allah making that promise, his mom did not simply, let the basket go without some sort of work, some sort of tying of her own camel. And that's why she sent his sister after him. And this is where we're going to circle back a bit. And the reason is that the mother of Musa comes with milk. And so if a woman has milk in her chest, that means there was some sort of baby that had recently arrived. So subhanAllah, it could have been that could have exposed her. Well, where's your baby? Why isn't your baby feeding? But subhanAllah, the year before, his mother had Harun. And Harun was born in the year where babies were not killed. And so this is what allowed her to possibly maybe have a reason to give to the palace as to why she has milk in her chest and where her baby is and why there's an overflow of milk in her chest. Because naturally, if a woman is feeding more than one baby, you can tell the difference in the amount of milk. So subhanAllah, Allah, the way Allah had everything planned. Allah's plan is truly, Allah is al-mudabbir. Not just the one who plans, but one who plans to perfection in a way that is best for you. And so believing that will always put you in a state of inner peace and serenity, because you know that whatever Allah does, He does it in a way that best fits me. Even if in that moment, I'm not very happy with the outcome or the way things are planning out. But when you know Allah's got you, when you know Allah's al-mudabbir, then nothing can really shake you. And so we'll continue now with the story of his sister. And we're going to find that over the series, there's this repeated skill set of women who ask questions, who are very good at the art of questioning. And this is so important. We're going to learn later on what are some of the types of these questions that you can ask and that you can pose to the people around you so that you can get the most information out and that you can help in a way that is helping. You can help in a way that is needed. Sometimes as women, we might jump to help and it doesn't come from a bad place. It comes from a place of truly a nurturing place of wanting to help. But if there are times where if we don't help in a way that is needed, then that help can actually be harmful. So it's very important in our state of helping to analyze the situation and to understand what kind of help is needed. Is it physical help? Is it mental help? Is it spiritual help? What kind of help is needed in that moment? So we'll keep going here. And Allah Azza wa Jal returns Musa to his mother, alayhi salam. And from here, we pause and talk about these agency, these elements of tamkeen al-mar'a al-muslima. How do you become a woman of agency? What does it mean to have agency? And what is this agency rooted in? That's all very important. So we're going to begin with lesson 1. Agency begins early. Agency is not something that you acquire when you're in middle school or your high school. Agency starts very young, when your daughters are very young, giving them the tools of the balance between when to speak loud and when to not speak loud, when to say something and when to delegate someone else to speak on your behalf. That art and that wisdom comes over time, and it comes with experience, and it comes with nourishing. But it takes time, but it starts early. So start it very early with your daughters. The next lesson is emotional grounding. Emotional grounding is one of the hardest but the most powerful tools of tamkeen that we can give our daughters and give ourselves. But it's also one of the hardest to acquire. It takes time, it takes patience, and patience takes patience. So emotional grounding is one of the most powerful forms of empowerment. And discipline. It requires discipline. Discipline will take you places that talent will not. And remember, if you know the story of the hare and the tortoise, you know that discipline will get you places. Number 3, the lesson is strategic thinking is extremely important for our women and girls. Strategic thinking comes from her sister following from a distance, analyzing the situation, taking a moment to take everything in, to decide what is the best route and what is the best solution. And again, that's rooted into grounding, and that's rooted into wisdom, and that's rooted into experience and nourishing and education and educating them on history. All of these strings and beads are tied together. Number 4, communication with wisdom. We must teach ourselves and our daughters to communicate with wisdom. And we talked about the elements of wisdom, of how to acquire, the various ways that you can acquire wisdom, that you can teach your daughters wisdom. But communication is so important. One sentence saved Musa and restored the family. And that sentence was her suggestion to the court of Pharaoh, "Shall I point you in the direction of a woman who could help?" And that communication is really important. So communication comes from questioning. Communication comes from knowing what to say, when to say it, and how to say it. That is very important when it comes to the elements of communicating. So start them young and put them in debate classes. Put your daughters in debate classes. Teach yourselves the elements of debate. It will solidify in them What are the difference between what battlefields, this is a battlefield that I want to die on, versus what things to, speak up on, what things to hold yourself back on. And again, when are some things, situations where someone else is better speaking on their behalf? We know the story of Khadija radiallahu anha, where when there grew an interest towards the Prophet ﷺ, it wasn't her who went and talked to him directly. It was her friend, it was her Nafisa, who was that person who acted as the delegate. And sometimes there's great wisdom in knowing when it's an area that you are more qualified to speak in and when you need to pass on the mic to someone else. There's great wisdom in that. Lesson number 5, tawakkul. Tawakkul plus action. Tawakkul plus action. It is not enough to simply say, Allah's got me. Musa's mother could have said, Allah made a promise to me. That's it. I'm good. I can sit and relax. Musa's going to come right back to me. No, she went out. She took some action. She sent his sister to follow him. And there was tawakkul. There was faith in that whole process. Number 6, quiet actions. There has to be a balance between quiet actions and loud actions. We have to teach our daughters that both scenarios, that various scenarios have a different reaction to it. That sometimes we have to be really loud and sometimes we have to be very quiet about certain situations. And how do you know the difference? How do our daughters learn this? They learn it with time. They learn it with experience. They learn it with our own guidance and our nourishing. And they learn it from being around women who are already doing this, women who are leaders in their fields, because most of the learning that is done of these type of skill sets are not done through books. And number 7, agency strengthens the family. Agency, tamkeen, giving your daughters elements, all of these various elements of agency and tamkeen will make them strong leaders, will make them strong pillars of their families and their communities. And when a woman learns, a whole family learns. And when a woman is strong, she uplifts her family. She pulls up her entire family and her community. And it's just like a pearl, a string of pearls. One pearl comes up, you have all of these people who follow suit. So give tamkeen, give agency to your daughters and allow them to pursue these elements of agency to make them like these women that we hope and pray to be able to follow in their footsteps one day, inshallah. I think I will end it here. And a few lessons to teach our daughters real quick is pursue courage. Teach them to be courageous. Uplift them, especially at a very young age. Give them courage. Give them praise their actions and give them with balance, of course. Praise with balance. Teach them to use their mind. Teach them to be calm. Teach them to calculate their movements. Teach them to have emotional ground them. Teach them to think and process before you act. Number 3, teach them to trust Allah with your whole life. Teach them to have faith in Allah. Tell them that all you have to do is do your part and then leave everything Allah. Everything will always turn out in your favor. Everything will always turn out in your favor. Just have faith. Have faith in al-mudabbir. And then lastly, teach them to ask questions. So what kind of questions do we teach them to ask? Here are some. The sister of Musa said, shall I direct you to a household who can take care of him for you? So what can we ask? We ask questions open. We teach our daughters to ask open-ended questions. We teach our daughters to consider other options. So sometimes when they're given options to ask, well, what other options exist? Do I have to pick one of those? What other options exist beyond that? Other questions. Can you help me understand? So if there's a conversation happening, as women, sometimes we shy away from asking questions because we don't want to come off, when it's okay to come off as not knowing a subject. But instead of saying, sometimes I see women kind of, pulling themselves down. I have no idea what you're talking about. This doesn't make any sense. Instead, there's a different way to ask. That way is, can you help me understand? Or what I hear you saying is XYZ. Can you help clarify if that is correct? Can you help me understand more about the angle that you're taking? And yes, you can teach young girls this. Elementary school, middle school, teach them to ask, can you help me understand, Mama, better what you're saying? Instead of saying, I have no idea what you're saying. I don't get this. Number 2, what's the best way to handle this? The question that you're asked is, what's the best way to handle this? Mom, I have no idea what to do. This is so confusing. Instead of saying that, you're going to teach them to say, what's the best way to handle this? Number 3, is there another option? Sometimes there are options that exist outside of the box, but we have to train ourselves to ask what other options exist. That's very important. So may Allah allow us to follow in the footsteps of the sister of Musa, alayhi salam, and to grow calm hearts, thinking minds, a sense of grounding, and agency, tamkeen that is rooted in tawakkul, tamkeen and agency that is rooted in iman, tamkeen and agency that is rooted in having absolute tawakkul and faith in Allah Azza wa Jal. He is al-Mudabbir. Assalamu alaikum.